Since the end of World War II, American forces have been in charge of this base and formed the bedrock of European security, sworn to come to the defense of its allies if they were ever attacked.
For decades now, the biggest defender of Europe has been the United States. With over 40 military bases from Greenland to Turkey and approximately 84,000 troops, the US has been the main contributor to the continent's defensive shield.
29 of NATO's 31 members are in Europe, and all of them are worried because of Donald Trump.
Europe is one of the richest places on Earth. It has powerful economies, modern cities, world-class infrastructure, and more millionaires per capita than almost anywhere else on the planet. But behind all this wealth lies a truth that most Europeans rarely acknowledge, let alone admit publicly. Europe cannot defend itself. Europe cannot protect its own trade routes. Europe cannot coordinate its own foreign policy, and Europe cannot survive a major geopolitical crisis without one country stepping in to save it: the United States. Today, Europe is more dependent on America than at any moment in its modern history, and the reason why goes far beyond alliances or shared values. It is rooted in how the world was rebuilt immediately after 1945, when Europe emerged from the most destructive conflict in human history. To understand this unusual relationship, we need to go back to the moment the continent collapsed. After 1945, entire cities were reduced to rubble. Factories and industries had fallen apart. Roads, railways, and ports were destroyed. Millions were displaced, and the region that once dominated global politics suddenly lacked even the capacity to protect itself. Its armies were broken. Its economies were shattered. Its political systems were fragile. Europe, the historical center of global empires, had become a region in desperate need of outside help. So one country stepped in, decisively, with money, soldiers, supplies, and a fully designed security framework: the United States. America rebuilt Europe's economy through the Marshall Plan, injecting massive financial aid that restarted industries, stabilized currencies, and laid the foundation for the European Union. And it rebuilt Europe's safety through NATO, a security guarantee that placed the US military at the heart of Europe's defense. But this came with a long-lasting consequence. Europe learned to live under the American umbrella. While the United States invested heavily in developing the world's most powerful military, Europe chose a completely different path. European governments invested in welfare instead of warfare. They built universal healthcare systems, advanced public transport, modern school, pension, and comfortable lifestyles. These choices made Europe an excellent place to live, but they came at the cost of military strength. Most European countries spent far below NATO's defense commitment. Germany, Europe's largest economy, invested minimally in its army. Italy, Belgium, Spain, and the Netherlands followed similar patterns, treating defense spending as optional rather than essential. Europe became richer and more peaceful, but its military capabilities shrank to the point where many of its armies struggled with outdated equipment, limited ammunition, and small active forces. Meanwhile, the United States moved in the opposite direction. It invested enormous resources into building a military unlike anything seen before. America created global satellite surveillance networks. It built advanced intelligence systems capable of tracking threats worldwide. It developed drones, stealth aircraft, nuclear submarines, missile defense shields, and cutting-edge cyber capabilities. It deployed aircraft carrier groups that could project power across entire oceans. And it established hundreds of overseas bases, making its military presence felt in every major region. Europe never tried to match this level of capability because it didn't need to. The United States was doing the heavy lifting. This is why, when a major war erupted in Eastern Europe, the continent's weakness became impossible to hide. When Russia invaded Ukraine, Europe could send money, diplomatic pressure, and humanitarian aid. But when it came to the actual tools of modern warfare, Europe was almost powerless without the United States. Satellite surveillance to track Russian troop movements? American. Precision-guided missiles that actually hit their targets? American. Long-range rocket systems capable of striking deep behind enemy lines? American. Massive ammunition supplies that Europe could not produce fast enough, mostly American. Air defense systems that protect Ukrainian cities from missiles and drones, American. And intelligence. Real-time battlefield data, drone feeds, intercepted communications that shaped every major Ukrainian decision, almost entirely American. Even the ships, aircraft, and heavy transport vehicles used to deliver European-made weapons often depended on U.S. logistics. In simple terms, without American support, Ukraine's defense would collapse in weeks, and Europe understands this better than anyone. This is why European leaders experience genuine panic every time an American president questions NATO's value. Because they know something the public rarely thinks about. NATO without U.S. power is nothing more than a political brand, a slogan, not a shield. But Europe's dependency doesn't stop with the military. It reaches into the most important engine of modern power, technology. Europe does not have its own equivalents of Google, Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, NVIDIA, OpenAI, or Palantir, the companies that build the world's most advanced chips, cloud systems, AI models, and digital infrastructure. European defense systems rely on American-made chips. European governments store sensitive data in American cloud servers. European cybersecurity depends heavily on American threat intelligence, American algorithms, and American monitoring systems. The digital ecosystem that Europe runs on, from smartphones to satellites, is shaped overwhelmingly by U.S. companies and U.S. innovation. And economically, the dependency goes even deeper. Europe's global trade routes, from oil shipments to container traffic, are kept safe by the U.S. Navy, not by European fleets. Its financial stability depends on a global economy dominated by the U.S. dollar, and its energy security is more American than ever before. When the Ukraine war cut off cheap Russian gas, Europe faced one of the biggest energy crises in its modern history. Factories prepared for shutdowns, governments warned of winter shortages, household energy bills skyrocketed across the continent. Only one country had enough spare gas to prevent a total industrial disaster: the United States. Within months, America became Europe's largest supplier of liquefied natural gas, filling the gap that Russia once occupied and stabilizing Europe's energy system just in time. American tankers kept Europe warm, American gas kept European factories open, and American energy kept the European economy from crashing. So why can't Europe simply become independent? Because Europe is not a country. It is 27 nations trying to act like one, but without the tools of one. 27 governments, 27 budgets, 27 parliaments, and 27 competing national priorities. Each country has its own history, its own security concerns, and its own idea of what threats even mean. Some fear Russia, some fear instability in Africa, some fear economic slowdown more than war. When the threats differ, the strategies differ. This is why they struggle to agree on a joint military. They cannot settle on who should command it, how much each nation should contribute, or what missions it should even take on. They don't have a shared foreign policy, and they don't have a shared defense policy. Without unity, Europe cannot act as a single power. So instead, it leans on American power, because that is the only power that is already unified. Meanwhile, the United States is built for global leadership. One government, one military structure, one chain of command, one foreign policy that stretches across the world. Its defense budget is larger than all European defense budgets combined, giving it unmatched reach, aircraft carriers across multiple oceans, global satellite networks, deep intelligence alliances, and rapid deployment forces that Europe simply does not have. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Europe may be rich, peaceful, technologically advanced, but strategically, it is limited. It cannot defend its borders alone. It cannot protect its trade routes alone. It cannot project power without American aircraft, American intelligence, American logistics, and American infrastructure. Even its advanced industries depend on American technology, from microchips to cybersecurity to aerospace systems. Europe talks about strategic autonomy, but the gap between ambition and capability is massive. There is no unified blueprint, no agreed-upon timeline, and no consensus on how to replace what the United States currently provides. Political speeches exist, military capability does not. And that brings us to the final conclusion. For generations, Europe has lived inside a world shaped, funded, and protected by the United States. And despite the debates, despite the pressure, despite the desire to stand on its own, Europe remains deeply dependent on America, militarily, technologically, economically, and strategically. Remove the United States, even hypothetically, and Europe's global influence shrinks instantly. Its security framework weakens. Its economic stability trembles. Its entire geopolitical position becomes uncertain. This is why Europe's future still depends on a country across the Atlantic. And this is why this dependency isn't fading anytime soon.